Okay, welcome to episode 6 of the One Divine podcast. I am so excited. We've got somebody on here. Welcome, whoever's on. We can see your comments in the studio here. And we are live and doing a podcast, but we'll try to answer any questions or address comments. So feel free to comment, even if I get them after. I love to see where you're coming in from. So share if you're coming in, where you're coming in from, even if it's after you're seeing this as a replay, which most of the people do. So I am very happy to introduce my guest, Melanie Easom. And I'm coming in from Mount Shasta, California. I was hoping today that it would be from our new mothership headquarters, home, and location and studio. But it was just a little too quick. We're moving in this weekend, and I'm like, I better stay where I know the setup. So I'm going to bring on Melanie Easom. And in the description here, oh, hi, Melanie. Welcome. You can introduce some of your own self. We put your bio on here as a light coder, and I know you as a team. And for those of you getting on here, we're going to share the story today of how we met. And as always, kind of the theme, the theme overall of the One Divine podcast is somewhat self-serving because pretty typical autism thing, fascinated by human behavior and non-human behavior and like all of that. And I'm fascinated by people's receiving modalities, how they talk to spirit, how they divine. And there are so many different methods we can divine through everything. And then I'm also fascinated by the teams and how this divine plan is unfolding and how we're brought together in the synchronistic web and all of it. So we're going to talk about all that today. And now we got Jeff is on from Georgia, the Georgia Peach, we call him. He is part of the Mothership Alliance, and he will be at HQ. He's part of the HQ team and assisting with landing the mothership here in Mount Shasta, making it possible. So we're all working together in these teams. And I told him to be on today because I said, we got more team who I'm bringing on. And I'm so excited about that. And we had an episode with Alan Green, my second episode, and we featured Melanie in a video because she is how I came to know her. And when Alan met her in Stratford upon Avon, because she had a voice in her head, as we do, who said, "Go to Stratford today," right? Like,
that's Alan's version.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay, good. We'll get the he said, she said today. Yay. We're gonna get the he said, she said. So I'll stop talking and talk about that, but I just and we'll go into Melanie, who she is. She has a podcast of her own, which is really lovely following, and brings on guests. We're joined in our kind of directive of lighting up the light workers, bringing people out, having them heard, having them stories heard, having their teachings brought out, and so that we can find each other. And more teams are coming together in small and large ways, and we have to see each other to find each other. So that's part of our joint mission, I would say, right?
Yes, most definitely. Yes, 100%. I mean,
so go ahead.
Things have just gone 100 miles an hour since like the end of January, which was the whole reason that I was in Stratford. Alan, it's so funny. Alan tells this story, and every time he tells it, it's a different story. So the real story is, I was looking to go away for my birthday, and my husband said, like, "Where did you want to go?" And it was like, "I'm really not bothered. Don't want to go too far away. We'll only want to go for a couple of nights, just a break. That's all it needs to be." So it was down to him, nothing to do with me at all. So he decided that we were going to go to Stratford. And it was like,
There we go.
Okay, fair enough. Never been, not bothered where it was, really wasn't bothered. All it was just a couple of days away. And through lots of things that happened that day, I left my phone and he had to go back to the car. So there was like an hour's wait there. We were going in different places and I wasn't staying and I was coming. There was all these things. It was mental. And we walked across the green next to the theatre, and there's lots of statues of Shakespeare and all other people from the plays and everything. And I happened to say to Dale, my husband, I said, you do realise that all this, doesn't really sink anymore. I said, I watched something, and I said, and it's nothing is as it seems with the Shakespeare thing. And he went, really? He said, what do you mean? I says, well, I watched something on Gaia, Alan Green and all of this. And I was like, kind of explaining him a little bit to it. Anyway, so we probably about 10 minutes after this, we went various places, went in to have a drink. For some unknown reason, I decided I wasn't going to stay. I'd never do this. I said, oh, I'm not staying. And he'd got this thing in his head about finding the giggling squid, this is all very funny as well. And it was like obsessed we're going to find this place. And it was somewhere we were going to eat that evening. And it was like, right, okay, you're just going on and on and on about this. So we find it. We'll stand there looking at the menu. We are on a crossroads. And it's literally, there's 4 ways you could go. And I decide, for whatever reason, that I'm just going to walk up this road. It looked like there was nothing there. But and he said, where are you going? And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm just going up here. He said, why? I said, I don't know. I'm just going down here. So I carry on going. He went, where are you going? I said, I'm just going a bit further. So by this time, he's in front of me and he'd stopped at this little hotel. It looked quite nice. And he's reading the menu. I'm behind him. And as I walk up to the door, this person walked out in front of me. I'm kidding you. No, I'm here. He's there. Walked out in front of me and got in his car. And I did a double take and I just went, I'm stood there with my mouth open. And I'm like, and Dale looks across. He went, what are you doing? I went, that's him. And he went, who? I said, the person who I've just told you about 10 minutes ago. And he went, you're joking. I said, I'm sure it's him. And then you've seen the video of the fun and everything, and me knocking on the window, and it's obviously Alan. But it was one of the weirdest, strangest things that's ever happened, because like I said, it wasn't me. It was just, I was going away from birthday. It was totally Dale. Alan had just come from America, booked in the hotel, everything that had to be put into place for us to literally just walk in front of each other.
And him to move, I got to move my car so it does into the parking.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's just one little slice of it's been off the hook. It's been, like you said, since January, and especially since some more new people, and many of you might find yourself having new people come on your team, having old people leave, and a lot of people get upset, by people leaving, but just trust, it all goes in circles, in cycles. So I've had many people who left for various reasons, and then they come back in and weave when they're supposed to, right? And we can't be attached to it, or we wouldn't have movement. And what's happening now, that's amazing. So yeah, I didn't hear that. It is this, the story gets like telephone, but
yes,
the synchronicity is no less miraculous. And I wanted to talk about Dale and his role in your life as a support, as a mystic, and he has his own radar. Clearly, we don't, I always say magic people don't marry muggles. And I don't mean muggles in a derogatory, pejorative way. please don't take it that way, because I don't. And I've seen people who are not traditionally spiritual or claim to be receivers or whatever, who are some of the biggest receivers I know. They give me so many signs. They do things intuitively. They live a good life. I think they don't have to bother with that. They're just doing it.
Yes.
So please don't misunderstand that. I don't like that kind of talk. It feels superior to me. And I don't mean that. We are all serving our roles. We're all innately intuitive, and it manifests in all kinds of different ways and flavors depending on, your role and your stage right now. So that's my disclaimer on that. I'm not I'm not into that. But I am into hearing the stories of this kind of stuff. Like, think about the timing, right? Like you said, I don't know. Oh, I went over here. I forgot my keys. Blah, 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 that just manifested that crossing at that second. That's a miracle.
It is. When you think of everything that happened that day, that everything that was obviously that kept being put off, or something would happen, or it's still, when I think about it, and for Alan, for him to be getting off the plane and driving from the airport, it still blows me away. It really does. But that's how Dale has always kind of acted in a way. He's always been a person, unbeknown to me, that has put me in a place where I needed to be. And that's Cyprus was one of those places where everything started, but also lots of other places as well. And I now trust that process completely, because if he says, right, okay, let's go here, I just like, right, okay, I know better now than to argue.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that too. I have some my teachings in my life. I've recognized there's certain people in my life or sphere or online that I call gold lions. And gold lions, it's based off a Yeah 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 song. Everything comes back to a song for me. There's a song for that, but it started coming in like 2013, 14, when I was having my grander awakening. Like, I think many of us were on the path in some way, shape, or form, following, learning, open, doing tarot, whatever it was we were doing. But then there's a moment where there's a big one, and I'm going to talk about Melanie's, and I want to talk about Cyprus, because this is, a lot of people are awakening, and I think they need to hear these stories of like how it transpired and how it like worked out okay. Because I'm like, oh my God, everybody thinks I'm crazy and I'm like, I can't work this job anymore or whatever. That they need to hear stories of like, no, you're not going crazy. This is actually happening. And here's how to have fun with it and roll with it. But before we get into that, because I want to get into that and sort of take it through your awakening, how this, especially this light language and codes, and we're going to talk about Metatron, because she's on the team. I call it the M team. It's like Mother, Michael, Metatron, Melchizedek, like the M team. And there's other characters in the play that come in, but it's like the M office. It is the office of heaven. It is very much organized in teams and offices, and you report to certain people and they give you instruction, or, spirits or guides or counsels. So we got to talking because Alan was like, you need to meet One Divine. He knew immediately that we had shared some things. This is Templaric. This is Essenes. This is all of this coming back together. Many of us have served many roles over many lifetimes, and it's like the same teams. They show me like dropping in like paratroopers, like, okay, move them out. Sometimes we got to do something bad to like collapse a, kingdom, or do something simple that, like even F up on a job that causes something to happen. These are all of the things that we're all doing sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously. So I wanted, before we get into that, I wanted to talk about the roses. We were having a conversation before we came on in the back room, in the green room, because I was going to have, as I said, this from the first broadcast from our mothership. And I've been having issues with the signal here with Starlink, and then we have a better signal over there. But it was the first time, and I was kind of rushing this morning. I'm like, nah, because we're not fully moved in, and I didn't want to take a chance with that and have added stress. So here we are. But yesterday, I was guided to and got roses for the place, and red and white. Was guided to do that, and I was have them in the scene when you broadcast. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this story up is because it's also a reweaving story that it's like Siri. I always say or Google Maps or whatever. So if you miss the exit, it will reroute you. And that's exactly how the universe works. If you drop the ball, they'll have somebody else pick it up. So I wasn't going to be able to have that here. I've got rose quartz. The rose is coming in hot. Like they had, like that was specific. I've got rose quartz here, and I've got and then I'll let me stop talking since she is the guest. What? Tell the story of then she gets the phone call from on high today. So to share that.
Yeah, I'm getting ready, and it's literally here in the UK where I am. It has rained all day, literally nonstop. And if I've washed my hair, I look like, if I go out, it's damp, there's humidity, there's rain, it just goes like this. So the last thing I wanted to do was go outside and start looking for flowers. But as I'm getting ready, all I keep getting is roses. You need some roses. And when they start with this, they don't shut up. So it's like, you better go and do it, because yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it's just nonstop. So I'm ready. I'm looking out the window. I'm thinking, right, you need to stop the rain, because my hair, it's like it need to stop it. So I'm stood there going, you need to stop it if you want these roses. Anyway, and this is not the first time that this has happened, but there was a lull in the rain long enough for me to run round the garden and start trying to cut some flowers as I'm madly going round, because they would not be quiet about it. I had to have these roses. And this isn't the first time that we've had this, like this connection on things, is it? Because we contacted each other not long back, and we didn't need the phone particularly. It was like, I'm getting a hit that we should get together, and I contacted you and you said, yes, so am I. So you get to the stage where you don't need the phone, you don't need the internet, because it's getting so strong with the weaving with all of us. It's absolutely mental at times, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was at another place. We've been renting. We had a cottage for like 4 months. And that was the first place when I was talking to you. And I remember the first time that we got on, and I think it was the same for you. I was so flippin' activated. Like we reconnected some codes, bleep blorp, bleep blorp. And when it's happening, like you're changing temperatures. You're like, I'm like, okay, this is a big reconnection of some plugs that needed to be replugged back in because it's time to do this dance. But when you do that, when you connect with people that you're in resonance with, that you're supposed to be with, the universe will give you so many signs, including your physical body. Like my heart will be beating, I'm changing temperatures, my hands and feet are activated. I was like, oh, he's going down. So thank you for sharing that story. And then let's jump into the story of your awakening on that level. Where were you before? And tell us the years. I know there was Cyprus, but there was kind of a time before that there was another awakening.
Yeah, before that, there was nothing really spiritual, I would say. I had a belief that this wasn't the end when you passed. And that was about as far as it went. And when my mother passed, I did actually say to her, I said, well, when you get where you're going, if you can come back and, let me know, please do so. And she did. And so it was like, right, okay, that kind of confirms that.
What was the sign, if you don't mind me asking? How did she let you know it was her?
In a dream, I actually sat talking to her, like she was there, but I knew that she'd passed.
What year was that?
Oh, grief. It's probably now, I would say, nigh on 20 years ago, I would think. But there was always that, because she used to go and see mediums and things like that. I didn't do that. So
that was my next question. Where were you on the, like, were you playing with tarot cards? Were you doing any of this?
No,
nothing.
No,
good. I wanted to hear stories of people that like weren't into nothing, and then all of a sudden, whoop.
No, absolutely nothing whatsoever. It was
what all. What did you do for a living?
It was all materialistic. We had businesses, because my husband was in the security industry, looking after high net worth individuals and celebrities.
Now he's looking after a high magic individual.
So very different world, huge property portfolio, business. It couldn't be any more different from this.
Wow.
Yeah. And we actually had, at the time, we also set our own social media company up. This was a long time ago.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. I'm a online community OG, like decades.
Yeah, because at the time, we couldn't find anybody to do what we wanted, and we literally set it up ourselves to do it ourselves. This is a long time ago, so it's funny how everything drops back into place. But no, there was absolutely nothing like that. We moved. Well, we didn't totally move, but we got a property in Florida in a place called Trinity. Of course you do. And it was a deceased estate. And this was something that was hilarious, because she was called Miss Bonnie, and Miss Bonnie was still there. And she used to do all kinds of things. So I was open to a degree at that. And Dale was always the one that would go to and wake him up at night and things like that. So,
and what year was that?
That would have been about 2007. And then, as we were looking to actually move the business and to move out to America, we got rid of everything in the UK. Dale had already got a visa. I hadn't got mine. So I was going through everything with the attorney. And they still don't know what happened to this day. And this is happens to be now, we're in 2012. And I suddenly got a letter from the government telling me it hadn't been successful, and I got to leave the United States, had 14 days to get out. We've got a house, got the whole thing.
They bought a house.
Yeah. Gonna live here, the business is gonna be here, everything. And we went to the attorney and said, like, what on earth has happened here? And we ended up speaking. We had a meeting with the actual CEO, and he was dumbfounded. He said this person, this attorney, had been with him for years. He was really experienced. He hadn't got a clue why he'd done what he'd done, because it was highly unusual the way he'd done it. So much so, they refunded all of the money, because obviously it's not cheap, all of the money, and asked us to sign paperwork not so we wouldn't sue them. So that's how big a mess up it was.
Well, you know what's interesting is as you're talking about this, just talking about the visa thing, I'm buzzing. My body's buzzing. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah. So there was there was no way from after that I couldn't stay in America. And it was like, right, okay. It was literally, what on earth and where do we go now? Because, like, I can't stay here. And Dale literally opened the laptop up and said, right, okay, let's have a look. And he went, right, we like the Mediterranean. Let's look for an island. He'd got 3 islands that he was looking at, one of them being Cyprus, and said to me, have you ever been there? And I went, no. Right, okay, let's go. And 2 weeks later, we landed on the island of Cyprus with two suitcases, because everything had to obviously stay in the house. Didn't have time to do anything.
Wow. So what happened with the house? You had to get out in 14 days.
Mm-hmm. The house had to be locked up and left, because I couldn't go back for a certain period. So it just had to sit there. And then obviously we got various places to rent. And then in the end, we ended up with this is funny as well. We ended up moving down more towards the sea, because of where we were. It wasn't nice in the winter. So we're driving around looking for another place to stay. And we're going round and I'm going, right, okay, I want that villa there, like something like that. But I also want that field on the back of it to grow all my own vegetables. And the next day we're actually going out and we're viewing things. So one of the places we pulled up at this huge villa, massive villa. And we're thinking, right, there must be something else round the back, because this can't be right. So we get out the car and it's this place. It's huge. It's like about 4,000 square foot. It's on 2 acres. There's a 7-acre field on the back of it. And it's like, don't be silly, we can't afford this. Why have they bought us here? So anyway, she goes in and it's beautiful inside. And I'm like, and then she tells me the price. And I'm like, right, okay. Interesting. And then obviously, like I've been in the property business, it's like, right, okay, then let's kind of see what we can do with this. So I put a stupid price in and thought, if it is, it is. And they came back, yeah, okay. I mean, we're only renting it, but it was like the price that we got it for was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And it, like I say, it got this field on the back. It had got swimming. It was huge. It was absolutely huge. It was 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and it was like there's only 2 of us. So it was once we actually got into this place, and there was a room downstairs that was like an annex with its own bathroom. You went down some stairs. It got an outside entrance to it as well. And who knew that within 6 months that was going to be my room?
Wow.
Because but even by this stage, nothing had happened. And it was when we got in this property, it was like, then I'm sleeping at night. People are coming to take me flying. I'm meeting people who say that they've been with me all my life.
So you get there, you move there, you're sleeping, you start having dreams.
Yeah.
So would you say your main modality is through dream time? You get a lot through your dreams?
I do get a lot through dreams.
I know you get a lot of waking stuff.
Yeah.
We compared notes, like we see a lot the same in the signs and the.
Yeah. I think it was one of the big things that was started to open up was on Cyprus, because obviously the island of Cyprus is very like high vibrationally.
Yeah, I wish I would have known you then. You had enough bedrooms to host me. Come over.
We ended up like it was like an Airbnb, the amount of people that we used to have over. But it was like as soon as you got onto the island, I was obviously always meant to go back, because as far as I was concerned, I'd never been there. And then obviously everything starts.
And did you know about grid work and that sort of thing at that time?
No, nothing at all. It was like the big thing first was when somebody in my dream literally came got my underneath me, and I'm flying around and they're taking me flying. It was this old guy, like great big white hair and a great big white beard, and he literally said, I've been with you forever, ever and ever and ever. And later on down the line, I found out that was Enoch. So that was kind of the starting of it.
Well, and isn't Enoch, some believe this is an embodiment of Metatron?
Yes. So
we've compared notes on the keys of Enoch, which Metatron was insistent that I get and begin to study before I went to New Mexico. So we've compared notes on that as well. So those of you who identify with Metatron will probably find that you identify with the works of Enoch and the keys of Enoch. Go ahead.
Yeah, most definitely. And then, like you said, with the dreams, and I was getting more and more vivid dreams, and I was even being told things and given warnings of things that were going to happen.
What year was that? That was 2012?
This was again 2012.
Okay.
And it started, everything started July from July to the end, everything started just very quickly open up, and the dreams were coming. And for one reason, I can't even, it's such a long time ago, there was one book that suddenly came into I think it must have been on my computer. And
I was going to ask you, what was your gateway drug book?
Yeah, it was
a gateway drug.
Yeah, Dolores Cannon. And it was a Dolores Cannon book that was put in front of me. And it was something, I can't remember the title, it's probably at the back somewhere, about the knowledge, the lost knowledge or something like this. And I started reading it. And obviously, she's all about past lives. This was the first time I read this book, and I was more or less like, yeah, it was like literally, yeah, I knew it kind of thing. Yeah, like confirmation. That was it. This one book, then literally I couldn't stop. It was like the door had been unlocked.
Yeah.
And I was book after
gateway drug. That's what I call the gateway drug.
Yeah, literally video after video after video. And this went on for the whole time I was out there, was 7 years. And it was constant. Every day, literally, all I could do was sit and read and research. And then obviously wanting to step into it more. And somebody on the island introduced, as you always start, Reiki. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, right, hang on. It was like, don't go to somebody. It was literally like, right, you jump straight in and you go in and you start doing it yourself. So I found somebody, fast tracked literally through everything. And because obviously, again, with the initiations of doing that started to open up even more then. So then I'm seeing auras, I'm seeing orbs, I'm getting it just went on and on and on and on. And it just got to a stage of I couldn't get enough. Like you say, it was like a drug. And it was like I had to find, it was like I was looking for something that I'd lost. And every single book or everything I watched, I was looking for something, but I didn't know what. It was like literally every book, I'm looking for something. And I think that this is why it was literally 7 years. so much information. And then obviously traveling to various places, training with like Grandmaster Mantak Chia. I found the Researchers of Truth on the island of Cyprus, which is somebody called Daskalos, which is the Magus of Strovolos. And I managed to go and get in with their group. Nobody spoke a word of English, but that didn't need to happen. And I ended up with all of their books, and things happened with that. It was a absolutely mad, huge awakening and a huge journey. And then the Essenes obviously came in, and I knew that there was a massive connection there. And I was seeing people that were coming in, and I was having a connection with the Templars, obviously Mary Magdalene, Saint Germain, like the whole opening. But Metatron was like the biggest pull, and it was sacred geometry. And I just had this thing, and so attracted, such a pull to sacred geometry, and didn't know why. And I was reading Sanskrit. I'm trying to learn Sanskrit, and you're like, if you sit there and you think, what am I doing? Kind of, what's all this for? And then one day it was really hot in Cyprus, and I'd grown lots of vegetables outside. I was growing herbs and teas. I was having a whale of a time. And I went in one day, and I think it was the afternoon, and I literally lay down on the sofa, just put my head back, feet on the floor, just to, it was so hot, just to have a breathe anyway. I must have gone. And I had an experience where I ended up going to a place where it was all green. It was like a huge field, and there was a lady, and there was my Rottweiler there at the time. And then there was this like a shack, and the grass was over the top of it. And from the outside, it looked total wreck. And the woman said to me, she said, go on in. I'm thinking, well, there's can't be anything in there. It's a bit strange. So Dale was with me as well, wherever I was. And he's behind me, and I knock on the door, and the door opens, and there's a man standing, and said, come on in. But I could see through the house, and it was immaculate. It was beautiful. It was all white. It was gorgeous inside. Didn't look anything what you expected. And it had got a long white wall on the right hand side of me, and there was 2 large pictures, and they'd got like pieces of sacred geometry on, huge. And as I walked past the pictures, they changed, they altered.
Harry Potter.
And I literally went, in my dream where I went to Dale. I said, did you see that? I went, did you see that they changed? And the man that was there said, no. He said he can't see it. He said he's not like you. And it was like, right, okay. And then I remember I came straight back. And when I came back, I had an amazing experience of I'd been home. The bliss, the love, the just, if you've experienced that, it was it just blew me away. And I knew that, what I had this experience, and I just knew you never died. I knew home. I knew it all. It was just, that changed everything for me. That was the bit where it was like, right, okay, huge. Yeah.
Ooh. Zing-a-ding-a-ding-ding, I call it. For those not watching, I'm making hand motions of shing-a-ling-a-ding-dong, I call it, when I get a big tingling rush of energy. Some people say it's the chills or goosebump. Like, it's not the chills. It's not cold. Temperature hasn't changed. It's our body going, yes.
Yeah.
Before we get too far past it, because I want to talk some more about Cyprus, and then when you really popped and you started with the light language. But before we get too far past that, I want to it's like a replay in the game where I'm like going over the gameplay. I want to draw attention for the listeners, and also thank you, listeners, everyone who's out there now and after, for joining us. I always like to acknowledge that. But 2012, it was interesting. I saw a comment on something else. Somebody was saying, "Oh, you woke up in 2012. Everybody woke up in 2012." Well, actually, no, that's not true. There are waves. It is very organized, this divine plan, because, right, some have to do a certain thing at a certain time, and then some help others over the fence when it's their time. And if everybody woke up all at once, we'd be screwed because none of us know what to do, right? Um, and so some of us were doing stuff before, and then we went to another level. And that's what's happening now. Wherever you're at, you're upgrading now. But I want to talk about like the 7 years. And this is why I keep drilling about like what year was it and how many years and that sort of thing, because it's very important to the process and to the alchemy. And when she said 7 years, right? So 7 years is an alchemical timeline. It is, I teach and operate a 7-day OS. And I didn't find out until the last couple of years that the Essenes had a 7-day OS. They had a calendar of their own that the months were all 28 days. It was 7 days, 7 days, 7 days, 7 days, new month, because there is an important, that's why there's 7 days of creation. And so same thing in the years, 7 years, you might find like you'll wake up, or maybe something massive will happen to you in your life. And there's a 7-year process of either maybe mastering a skill or mastering gifts or processing the data, right? So she was in this stage of like reading and filling it and integrating all of this stuff that was happening. And I had a similar process, and it started 2012. I was awake before that and talking to guides. They told me to do certain stuff before 2012, but many did in some degree or another. Different people experience different things. But then there's, I call it the 8th. After 7, it goes full integration and kind of like sends it back out, recycle, integrate. And then 9, that's the number of completion. 9 years, you might find these 9-year cycles that then it completes. And then 10, I call like the new game board, right? And then 11, you're off and running while another process is starting. So I'm just explaining that because often you can see that in your own life. Oh, that's interesting. And you'll see, I talked about these cycles before of, you might notice 3-year cycle or a 4-year cycle or a 5-year cycle where people from that time are showing up again, or information from that time, more information that connects to it shows up again. So I'm just drawing attention in this story to like how we alchemize what's coming in, our learnings, our turning on. It's not overnight. It's a process. It's an algorithm that is universal. And this is what many in the spirit science community, I call it, which I'm a part of, Melanie's a part of, and just like kind of coming into some of this, Mateus DeStefano and Robert Edward Grant and Alan Green and many, many, many more who are connecting these dots. But the math is important. It's magnetic, and these numbers and the process, but it is all the same template. It is just fractaled or, brought out. So now that I've pointed that out, I want to hear about that next stage where you like really blew the doors off when you went to, you'll tell the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, after obviously like experiencing all of that again, it's, you know what it's like with synchronicities. I was going over to the UK to visit my son when we lived in Cyprus for 1 week. And something was put, a video was literally put in front of me that I was watching, and I thought, oh, interesting. So that led me to the person that she was talking to, that I ended up on her website. I looked where she was, and she was going to be an hour away from where we were staying. And it's like, and she, that weekend, she got a channeling workshop. So it was like literally ding, 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 ding. And it was like so funny, but it was one of those things, or I call it the pull. And I get the pull like in my solar plexus, and it literally is the pull. And when I get that, I know that I've got to do it. It's important. I've got to follow it through. So I'm literally getting the pull. I know that it's important. And it was like, right, okay. And I just decided to go to a channeling workshop with a lady who at the time, I think she would have been she still is, like, I think she's about 89 now, in her 80s, like amazing lady. And in a front room, and there was 10 of us in her lounge, and she was assisting obviously us to channel, to bring people, whatever guides or whatever through. And she went round everybody, and people brought people in and everything else. And I'm like at the last one, and she comes around to me, and it's like, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, there's nobody here. Like, what am I going to do type thing. So she comes around to me and she went, Melanie, she said, you have a very large being above you who is asking permission to come in. And I'm like, okay, because obviously it's safe and everything else. And this energy came in. It was huge. I'd never felt anything like it before. And then she said to me, she said, right, okay, now you need to say something. I couldn't say anything. And it's like, I couldn't literally speak. And she went, just say anything. It was like something was blocked. She went, just say anything. And eventually, I say it was literally like taking the cork out of a shaken up bottle of pop. And the cork came flying out, and literally, and it was a tirade of light language just spew out of my mouth at a rate of knots, and it didn't stop. And I'm like, I'm there, but it's just going and going and going and going, and it wouldn't stop. And she asked him,
how long would you say it went on?
It went on for about 10 minutes, and in the end she had to shut him up because she got everybody else there. And she asked him, and I said him because it was definitely a male energy, and she said, what's your name? Who are you? And there was a laugh that came out of me that was so deep. And he was like, what the was that? And he wasn't saying anything. It was like, and then she called him something, a funny name like Fred or whatever, which he thought was funny. And then she went, right, I'm going to have to stop you now if you're not going to say it other than that. You know, we've got all these people in here. So then it just stopped. And I'm sat there like, and everybody's looking at me.
You had to be tripping out.
Eyes on saucers. And like, what was that? And I'm like, literally, I'm like, what the? So we were more or less at the end and we finished. And I'm like, that was just completely and utterly mental. And I got in the car afterwards because Dale, my husband, was picking me up, and I got in the car and I sat there and I went, you're never going to believe what just happened.
I can't imagine like going in and then coming. I'm just going to go to like learn about channeling.
Yeah. Looking back, it's hilarious. You know, what I said to him when I got in the car. But I, you know, like it must have been months and months and months before on my journey that I'd come across a video of somebody called Wendy Kennedy. Do you know her?
Mm-hmm.
And she was bringing information through from the Palladians, and she was speaking light language, and I'd never come across it before, never heard of it, and she started speaking it. And I looked at it and I literally said to myself out loud, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. And that takes spirituality to a whole new level, completely breaks the biscuit. No, definitely, like, wasn't having it, totally took it beyond like anything.
Oh, I used to laugh when people changed their names. Crazy shit. I'm like,
yeah.
When I got the guidance, I was like, are you serious?
Yeah. So I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, and I put it away, and I didn't, that was it. Not another thought. So for me to actually have that happen to me, and that I was like,
for 10 minutes of like a tirade, that's crazy. What did Dale say? What did Dale say?
Well, Dale didn't, obviously, at that stage. He wouldn't have known anything about that. I just, I said.
But how do you go into the car and explain that?
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think by that time enough had happened over the years that it was like, yeah, all right then.
And
it's all right.
What year was that? And what year was that?
That was 2017.
Okay. Yeah, that was a huge year. Huge, right? I'm like, there's so many people on the team that I could, like, we talk about 2017, and it was, that was that year of the eclipse, and we just act that this year. But I mean, I can sit in a circle with friends and go, oh, 2017. Like, it was popping. Yeah. It was another wave.
So I think that was about September time. And so it was like, literally, it just blew me away, and I didn't know which way to turn, because it kind of, everything that I'd done for all of those years, this was like, well, what do I do now? What is it about? What's it for? It literally, it stopped me in my tracks. But just before that had happened, probably, I can't remember if it's weeks or months before, I remember seeing a mark that had come up on my left shoulder. And it was 3 dots in the shape of a triangle. And it just appeared from nowhere.
Like Orion.
And it was like, it used to go, it used to like light up. It was weird. I used to like see it. It used to like, and I went to Shirley the day after this had all happened, because I said, I need to have a session with you. I need to see it, to try and work out what on earth all that was all about. And so she obviously tuned in and channeled and said that it was all to do with Thoth and Metatron. And I asked her what this was on my arm, and she said, that's for when you go up to the ship. I'm like, what?
Okay, we could do a whole other show on the mothership situation, and it's part of, yeah. So
it's like, right, okay, this is really taking this to a whole new level. So that took about, I would say, 2 years of total integration, because I didn't know what it was for or how it worked. And when I said to you that all I could do was sit down with these big pads and just write and write and write.
I hope you brought a show and tell.
Like, I don't know.
So if you're not watching on video, Melanie's going to share these pads. And this is important. I want to share because many people have it coming through. I spoke about this on my last episode about Terrence Howard, when he had a notebook full of drawings, and I'm like, it's light language. And he's like, what?
Well, you see how big it is.
Yeah.
Right. And I have a section.
Can you hold it up a little closer so we can just see a little bit for those watching of the symbols and the writing? So
is that close enough?
Yes. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? And it looks very different. Like we were talking about before, there are different languages, just like there's different languages here, and there's different purposes, and some are codes and some are language and some are we don't have to figure it out. That's the beauty of the light language. But hers is very unique. You know, there's some that's a little bit more twirly swirly. I've seen some that's very angular, very, you know, straight lines. I've seen, you know, I talked about there are especially like autistic children who are nonverbal coming through and painting, drawing, writing this light language. And it's amazing. And people speak it. I do it with my hands a little bit and I'm guided. And sometimes it just happens you know, like unconsciously. But what is that? What have you come to know it to be? What are you bringing in?
Well, everywhere that I went over the 2 years to try and find out what it was, because like you see how big the pad was. I have a section of pads literally like this. I've got a huge amount.
Wow.
And it was when it started, but the writing didn't start straight away. It was verbal. And one day I thought, oh, I wonder if I could write it, because I knew people did. And I got a pen and it was like nothing happened. And then literally probably about 6 months after that, it was like, get a pen. It's like, right, okay, get a pen. I've got a pen. That was it. And it was off. And once I started, I literally, again, it was like when I was in Cyprus, I couldn't stop. I sat down and just had to scribe and scribe and scribe and scribe. I had to get it out. And like I said, I didn't know what it was for. I hadn't got a clue. Everywhere I went, every person that I asked would say something. And my whole being would go, no, that's not it. And I'm like, right, okay, well, tell me what it is then. Everywhere, no, that's not yours. And I was getting really frustration. 2 years has gone past and I'm like, right, you know, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to tell me what the on earth this is all about now. And anyway, so I got a message from a friend who said, I've got a message for you and they want you to write the emerald codes. I've told you this. So I'm like, right, okay. So I've got an iPad Pro and the pen and everything else. So I did pictures and gold writing and emerald codes. And I was showing them to people and people were like, I'd show them and they go, oof, that's see, I can't look at that for long. And I'm like, right, okay. But as soon as I'd written these codes, I was in my room, which is different to this now. And I've got all these books and they literally went, right, okay, go and pick that book up. I'm like, right, okay. So I picked this book up. I've had it for years. And I'm like, right, okay, I'm going through it. And I'm going, right, okay, I'm waiting. And I go to the last chapter. And I go to the last chapter. And I've read this book, I don't know how many times. I've had it so many years. And there is literally everything about my language and how it worked and how it worked with the grids and how it works with the fifth dimension. And it gave me all this information. And I'm like, right, okay, brilliant. But that wasn't the end. That wasn't the end of it, because then the next day it was like, right, okay, sit down, get your pad and write these questions. And I literally wrote the questions of, right, how does my light language work?
Yeah, the questions. I want to draw attention to that, people. If you're getting stuff, literally, I call it Gadoogle. Put it in Gadoogle, like one question at a time, right? And then just send it. Don't worry if it comes back right away. You might get directed to a person, a book, or it'll just come as gnosis, like whatever, right? But I just want to draw attention because the questions are so important. And my team will tell me, so I'll just lay there and go, well, what about this? And what about ask and you shall receive?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So I was writing these questions and literally automatic writing, you know what it's like, as I'm writing as fast as I can, forget spelling. It was just added to do it as it came out. And then the next question, and then there'd be a load of an answer. Then the next one, and there was an answer until we got to the end of it. And when I sat back and I read it, I had to Google some of the words. because I didn't even know what some of the words meant, which we all know when we get like that it's definitely, it's coming from somewhere else.
Yep.
So I got a full explanation of how my codes worked. They gave me the whole lowdown on it. But at this stage, there was still no sign of the Metatron connection. So we ended up some synchronicistical event. I think again I was in Cyprus, and if anybody's heard of Elba Wyman, who's she's an American past life regressionist, and she does some amazing work. And she was coming to the UK, and I tried to get on board, but wasn't having any of it. But there was a person that did, and when I came to watch the video, he was bringing Metatron through, and so immediately I'm like, straight whole drawn to it, and I'm like, right, okay. And I watched it, and obviously she didn't tell you these people's names or anything. And a few months later, again, I can't even remember how it happened, somebody came up on my Facebook, and somebody was attached to them with a picture of the person that had brought Metatron through. And I'm like, right, okay. So I connected with him, and through a course of conversations, I said, why don't we just get on, on a chat, and we'll just have a talk. But in the meantime, I'd been receiving more information and bringing things through. My camera's gone off. Can you hear me, Mr.
I can hear you fine. You're getting a little bit, but it's fine. Most people will be hearing this audio, but
so
you're looking good. The roses look good.
I've been getting some information through, which I've been writing down, and I'd not told anybody because I thought it was all a bit strange, as you do. And in the course of conversation, I said to this person, I said, I don't know why I've got to tell you this. I said, but I am one of 4. And I said, they told me this information, and I questioned it. I said, what do you mean I'm 1 of 4? And it was like stern. It was like, you are 1 of 4. So I wrote it down. I'm like, okay, I haven't got a clue what that means. So I happened to say it to this person. His name's Nilesh. And he nearly fell off his chair. And he just looked at me and he went, okay. He said, 1 week ago, I was given the information that I have 3 sisters. And it was
the numbers, I just got to tell you, because this is what I'll do. The numbers on the viewers went from 3 to 4 when you were just speaking that. We've got 4 in the house, so welcome.
Yeah. So 1 of 4, and he said, oh, I've got 3 sisters. And in talking to him and obviously watching the video, I knew that he brought a huge aspect of Metatron through, a huge aspect. And so it was like, right, okay, how does this work? If you've got sisters, then what is the connection? And he explained it all, to the fact of the connection of where we're from, the crystal origins, the Metatronic aspect, the 3 of us, and then the plan was, obviously he had to then find the other 2 sisters.
Put the infinity stones together in the gauntlet.
Yeah. So it was like, right, okay. And that took a while, but we did find them, because they were all over the place. One's in Slovenia and the other one was in Sweden.
Isn't this game exciting, everybody? Yeah. Like, this is totally, it's a game, and we've got pieces and they're put together in right timing, and not until it's ready, and it's amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then I figured out one day, because I'm working out everybody's birthdays, and it's like, right, okay, well, I'm the oldest physically. Then there was 7 years, and then there's Nilesh, and then there was 7 years. And there was Inez, and there was 7 years, and then there was Ara. And I'm like, okay, very, very interesting, very funny. And then one day, Inez sent me a picture, and she sent me a picture of like 3 dancing flamed females. It's an amazing photo. And then underneath it, she put, I have just realized that the beginnings of our first names spell I am.
Oh,
Inez,
come on.
Aura, and Melanie. And
There
it
you
was
go.
like, you are joking. And I mean, I've looked up how many female names there are on this planet. And you think, what would it take to have 3 females with each letter, the first letter of their name, for it to spell I am?
Melanie, you're my kind of nerd. I like that. I love it. And I'd be looking that up too. Like, it's amazing. But like, and Alan talks about that too. Like, some synchronicity story. He was saying, like, imagine the things that have to line up, like statistically impossible. Statistically impossible.
Yeah, totally.
I wanted to also share too about the writing, because this is for those who maybe have already had this experience or are having this experience now, because there's many who will be bringing in new stuff too and are on teams and that are doing that. And I've kind of like interviewed before this show. I'm always asking people about their process and about their awakening and about what happened and blah blah blah, right? Or they'll just share it with me. And I have a whole box full of stuff that I wrote, and they told me to write, literally use an ink pen in that I had to put in the inkwell, and a candlelight, and I used parchment. And sometimes, and then, but it was loose sheets of paper because it would just come that way. And then I put it all together. Some was in a box. And again, I didn't fully know what I was bringing. I wasn't bringing in light language, but it was like details, downloads, like all kinds of stuff. And some people, I call it the crazy room. I'm like, oh, did you have a crazy room? Because many people who are waking up have a crazy room. And like my friend Michael Hudson, who's in the UK, when he was having all the math downloads, and I met him through some of the work I did with Robert Grant, from somebody that introduced me, and totally on the team, came to Egypt, all this, whatever. He rented he's in London. He rented an apartment. He had a crazy apartment.
Really?
Like, he had a family and kids, but he was getting all of this information and everything. So he rented an apartment just to make the crazy room and have the stuff on the walls and write all the stuff. So like, if you're having that happening and you're thinking you're like really losing it, you're probably in fact bringing in some very important information. And it doesn't matter whether or not, unless it does, it gets seen. And I was like getting in a lot of the stuff I'm doing now in prophecy for now. But some of the stuff I understand, like, I don't have to do it. It's being done. I'm seeing it now play out in the collective, in technologies that are coming out, in whatever. But it needs a human to earth in, spirit into matter. We are biotransducers. Metatron talks about that. I got the word transducers, and it's a lot of it's tech. It is truly tech, but
Yes.
what a transducer does is it converts digital to analog and analog to digital. And I was explained, and that was one of the words that came through. I'm like, what's a transducer again? Because the word was coming through. Like you said, you got to look it up. And then when I went, and Metatron guided me into studying the keys of Enoch, which I did in a nonlinear fashion. I would be shown numbers of keys to look up at a certain date. And in the keys of Enoch, he talks about the biotransducers. So that was a really nice confirm. But why I'm saying it and bringing it up now is what Melanie was bringing in, or what you may be bringing in. Don't discount it as crazy scribble, or that it doesn't matter, or it's not doing anything. You're literally bringing from the ethers these ideas, these things, and putting them into physical form, either spoken language or written language. And that is a very powerful act. And that is what we're here to do, to embody the frequency to bring it through, to bring ideas through, that, it's like the 100th monkey, whatever, it goes out into the collective conscious, and you might just simply be a conduit. You don't have to build the entire thing out, or maybe you're going to build part of it or whatever. But my point being, you might have a crazy room. I had guides come through a reading in 2013 that told me, get lots of paper. You're going to have to write. You're going to be writing. And I'm like, I had no idea how much. And it's starting again. Like, it went away for a while and I was processing it or working on it or not, going through something else. And then now, I don't know about you, but I'm getting a whole new wave, and it's more practical. It's not like the storm that I was getting the downloads then. Now it's kind of more incremental steps, like today or for the next week. But are you getting, has it come in waves, or, and we'll wrap up pretty soon. We could have 5 shows because there's so much to talk with you, like the grid work alone, which I'll have you on again. There's certain people, like I was saying, that, we tune in, and there's other people out there on our team, which is why we're doing this, who need this information or who have information for us. As it's gone, we've got a whole Scotland. We could do a show on Scotland, on what we're getting there and happening there. We haven't even touched it, just hearing about your story.
Yeah, like you say, there's all the Scotland thing. When we go there and what happened to me there, there's so much. There's like the walk-in aspect of what happened to me, to the fact of the discovery on that. So there's a lot more.
Yeah. I think we're going to do this as a to be continued for sure. And like I said, I'm going to have a regular rotation on people that I regularly rotate with, because it's fascinating when we're talking about it and then it happens, or, something else is going on. Yeah, it's amazing. This hour went really super fast.
I knew it would. I mean, we could literally sit here and probably go into at least 3 or 4 hours.
I know. Take that, turns, Howard. No, I'm kidding. But in all seriousness, we might have a little conversation to bleep blorp, because many of us have to come together at certain points in certain places with certain information, and it feels all connected. It's not feels like it totally is.
It is.
One thing that I didn't get, like I was spraying, I didn't do at the beginning. I did before we started. I always create a sacred space. So I did do that before. I've got like my candles going and my rose. Like I said, it's rose. I was even holding angelite and roses today as I was being guided. And also I'm just going to make a little guest appearance. Wanted to be here. Merlin wanted to say hi. Okay. So Merlin's here. But I was getting the kind of tap on the shoulder, like you didn't like really open the space. And that's important to me. It's like I equate it to an opening a computer session and closing. Like if you unplug the hard drive, it'll give you a thing like this was unplugged without you doing it right. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. So, and I also got a little rose spray, which I sprayed, but in lieu of a like full drop-in opening, which I usually do, we'll do a full drop-in closing, and we have 3 people on, 4 or 5. Got a nice little star here. And Melanie, I thank you for your time, for your incredible story, and I feel like we just hit the tip of it, and there's so much more going on. I know that every time also I'll draw attention to when you might connect with people that you are connected with on your team. Once you connect and share, a lot of times it's followed by a whole bunch of downloads, because we're exchanging more information than just the words, right? We're doing quantum information. So then your onboard computer will process that data, and you might be in the bathroom or driving or whatever, and then you're getting all this stuff, which we just shared. Metatron in Keys of Enoch talks about data packets, and that's the way I've always been made to understand it. Data packets come like a movie over broadband comes in little data packets, and then the signal reassembles that all into a movie that's streaming. And that's how streaming can work. And it works the same way for us. We have this quantum information, we have these little data packets, and then they're assembled, and then they open at the right time that you need them, right?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
So anybody who's on, somebody's dropping off, they're not going to drop in. We're done. But if you'd like to just drop in with us to close this container, which it is a sacred container. And we're so grateful that you joined us. Spirit, we are so grateful for your support, our light team, our galactic teams, our angelic teams, our elemental teams, Gaia. We have so many levels, and we are so grateful. We are so in service and thankful that we are finding each other, that we are supporting each other. May we bring blessings on your work, your journey, Spirit with us, in us, all doing this together as one. We are so blessed, so grateful, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, One Divine.
Okay, I'm going to end the stream. Stay on.